I'm going to go ahead and get started and share my screen here with our PowerPoint. Give me just 1 second to make it. All right, let me make it. Oh, that's popping up. Sorry, guys. I'm so tech challenged. I've got to move you all out of my way. Yeah, I had to move my picture of people out of my way so I could get this started. Okay.
I figured you had to move your cat.
Yeah, right.
Kidding this time.
All right. Can you all see this? Is this good? Yeah. All right. So makes you want to shout Health Policy 2021 update. Makes you want to shout in positive ways and negative ways. So let's talk about that federal and state level. So, all right. This year, 2021, we finished our session up just a couple weeks ago. Almost 300 bills actually passed out of the legislature. And on our website, we've got a document describing what happened, what didn't. You've got a link to it, but we're giving you the highlights. So, what happened, a big thing, as an organization that really tries to promote positive healthcare policies, our ultimate goal would everybody had access to healthcare that's affordable and quality. That's our ultimate goal. And so when we work on the legislative session, that's what we keep in mind, that we want those things to happen. We were a little bit distracted, honestly, this year because of the fight around the personal income tax. It passed in the Senate and then ended up dying unanimously in the House. And I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with the fight that went on, but the fight was, let's get rid of the state personal income tax to bring people to West Virginia. As an organization and others, and I'm not trying to be political here, we disagreed with that because we know that to take away money, you have to replace it with different funding or cut services. So we knew that this was not good for West Virginia, and we spent a lot of time on this. Governor Justice actually, since it didn't get through during regular session, he probably will bring it up again in special session. So this is not the end of this fight. We think that, it's bad for healthcare because it could cut services. If you're going to cut our personal income tax, which is about 40% of our revenue, it's almost half of our revenue. Go ahead.
Yes, we know that.
Okay. Yeah. So to cut that, then we were concerned. We were concerned about the impact that would have on other programs. So this is a continuing issue that we will be working with. We'll keep, because in our mind, the income tax is a progressive tax. So lower income folks pay less as a percentage of their income. Higher income folks pay more as a percentage of their income. To replace that with what we call a regressive tax, like the sales tax, which is what's being proposed, is a lot more impactful on those living with low incomes. So that's why we're so concerned about it. It's that plus the healthcare cuts that would have to come. We would have to cut services somewhere. And so that's why we're so concerned about it. This is a fight that's going on for the whole summer into fall. We'll keep an eye on it. If anybody is interested in keeping an eye on it with us, I messed up. We will totally do that. Hold on, y'all. I'm the worst, I swear. Like you'd think I'd know technology by now, but I don't. So here we are. So that's one thing we're keeping an eye on that was unexpected during this session. And things come up that are unexpected all the time. But we have some good things that have happened. House Bill 2266. This was a personal favorite of mine. We passed this. It extends our Medicaid CHIP funding, like from a pile of money, for postpartum coverage. So for mothers who have given birth, if they meet the qualifications, which I'll tell you about in a second, it extends their care from 2 months, which is what we passed 2 years ago, to 12 months. So we have invested as a state in our mothers. And this means a lot to me, just as a member of the state, but also as a mother. So we extended that Medicaid up to 300% of the federal poverty level. So if you see on our slide here, if I were a single woman with no kids and I made $38,000 a year, I could qualify to have 12 months of postpartum care plus, my maternity care while I was pregnant. I think this is a huge win for our state. We're one of the first states to do this. And even Biden's administration is pulling down and suggesting regulations that achieve this same goal, I would say. So we're a lead in the nation on taking care of our mothers. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. Another bill, Senate Bill 354, it meant to tighten up presumptive eligibility for Medicaid. One of the things is, you go into the hospital, you have pneumonia from COVID, you need breathing treatments, whatever it is. The one of the things that they wanted to do was pull back that presumptive eligibility. What we do now is we assume if somebody tells us that they're, Medicaid eligible, let's go ahead and go with that, figure it out later and do that. So to us, it was a good thing that this particular bill died for that reason. And then we had other bills, the firearm bills that were going on in schools. We had some other things that we thought were good that died too. House Bill 3001, it died. This was the bill, it was sponsored by a Republican. We really, really tried to gather bipartisan support for healthcare things. And this is one that even Delegate Worrell from Cabell County, or that district, it was a Medicaid buy-in bill, especially for folks who would lose their healthcare coverage once they started working, and then fall into this we call it a cliff, right? So you fall off eligibility, but you don't have anything to back that up, anything to catch you when you fall. So that was something that we were working on. It died, but the ultimate goal, right, as healthcare advocates, would be to have that access and not worry about the financial part of it, right? I know personally folks that would not go to the hospital or the ER or urgent care because they were worried about the bill. So, to have a universal coverage option, it's I don't want to say it's pie in the sky, because I know a lot of folks are really working on this and really want this to happen. But it's still a tough fight to get that done. Another thing I wanted to mention, and I don't want to take up too much state update time because Kat's much better than me and she's got the federal thing coming up. But one thing that we're especially concerned about is prescription drugs, and not just prescription drugs, but other supplies that folks need to live their lives healthily. And, one of the easy ways to understand that is to think about diabetes and the insulin copays and costs. Some of our delegates, especially Delegate Fleshauer, worked really hard in 2020 to lower the cost of private insurance, copay caps on insulin and things like that. But, we can do more. It's not just insulin, and it's still a it's still $100 cap on insulin. And what she had advocated for was 25. But it's not just diabetes and insulin that we're looking at. We know that it's more than that, right? It's anything you need to be healthy. Why are we paying hundreds or thousands of dollars a month to basically live our lives? So that's why that one's always super, super important to us. And we'll be working on that, forever until we get it fixed. And I just want to run through really quickly before I pass it over to Kat. I told you 300 bills passed, thousands died. So we've got passed, died. That's all in your packet, and you can see that. But, some of these may be interesting to folks because some of them are about, like Senate Bill 387 about drug screening and testing for TANF. Temporary assistance to needy families. And then, so we're keeping close eye on things like that. Like, are we going to make it more difficult for people to access services, or are we going to make it easier for people to access services? And that's a big question. Like, what do we want to do? Do we think that people don't deserve food if they don't pass a drug test, or children don't deserve services if their parents aren't up to par, or whatever? So, it's always something we have to keep in our mind when it comes to things like drug screenings, work requirements, etc. Like, who are we really looking out for? So in here, you're going to see tons of bills, passed. I'll go in here. There's bad bills, like things that limit the power of local boards of health to make decisions for their counties. There's, Senate Bill 11, declaring work stoppage or strikes by public employees to be unlawful, which is crazy because it's already unlawful. I can't get my mind around it. But it's limitations on our ability to speak out and advocate, and that's important. So you're going to see here, like, I can't even describe the number of bills that went through that we didn't intend to watch, but it was so, this legislative session was so, what do I want to say? Rapid, so weird with COVID and everything like that. One of the, problems as advocates we experienced was lack of access to our legislators. And so we're working on ways to change how we access the decision makers, change how we put messages out to the public and things like that, because our local government, we tend to focus on federal, and of course, because, that's the way government works, but our state legislature has a lot of power to do good or to do not so good. And so what we try to do is champion those good bills and fight against the ones that are, bad for individuals. Yeah. So Kat, I'm not sure. Okay, I'll talk about this slide real quick. I was wondering if I should talk about it at the end, but no, I'll do it now. Oops. All right. So, some of the things we are looking forward to in the future is, like I said, reducing the cost of prescription drugs. There was a bill out there that didn't go anywhere, but it's not just insulin. We know from stories, we know from anecdotal things, we know from data that the cost of prescription drugs leaves people not getting life-saving medication because they can't afford it. So that's super important. Obviously, we would love a Medicaid buy-in. We are super fans of Medicaid. It's the best health insurance. And, we've got an example in West Virginia with the MWIN program. We know that you can do this. We just have to have the momentum, I think. We do not like short-term health insurance plans. We think they're deceptive. From that. And then, this idea of telemedicine. One of the cool things about COVID, if you could think of anything cool, what I have is that I got to spend a year with my kids. That's cool and not cool, just balancing it. But this year has shown us that we can do things in a different way. We can provide access in a different way, such as telemedicine, and allowing specialists from out of state to participate in our telemedicine programs. That would be super helpful. So I know I just told you a whole pile of things, but the truth is that healthcare is not just insurance, but there's a whole pile of things that matter, and the state level is important, but that's not the only thing happening. Things are going wild at the federal level. Kat and I were speaking about this presentation, and I was like, oh shoot, I can answer any questions on the state level, but daggone, the federal level, they're moving fast. They're doing really good things under the Biden administration. Some things we may want to put our input in on. Not everything's decided. And as citizens, we have an opportunity, and I'll tell you about that at the end, but we have an opportunity to give our voice on what's happening at the federal level. So I'm going to, because I spent up too much of my time if we're going to get to any Q&A. So I'll turn it over to Kat, who will totally use up the rest of the time. Right, Kat?
Nope, I won't. I will try to go through my slides quickly.
I'm just teasing,
I think it's really
Kat,
important. And now Jesse and I'll tease each other back and forth, but I'll tell you, your opportunity to make a difference in the state legislature is enormous. And don't think you can't make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
We defeated the proposal to phase out the personal income tax, in part because we had a lot of normal average consumers out there, voters, talking to their legislators. We had a ton of phone calls go into key chairmen. And I don't know how many of you are students, but we had a group of students who were involved in explaining why they did not support the phase out of the personal income tax. We had a student who testified, these were social work students, who testified before the legislature. And we had a student who placed an op-ed and just generally was a very important voice. They, when a legislator hears from a student, it's different from hearing from someone like me who's, getting paid to do the work. And so they can discount my opinion. But when students from their own neighborhoods are calling them and saying, don't do this, it makes a difference. Every one of you, and I think I see something like 82, 84 participants, a few of those may be staff, but most of you are welcome to write email to either Jesse and I. We will plug you in. And if I were to get 80 emails, I promise to respond to each and every one. I will take the challenge. So let's turn to the federal scene real quick. The good news is that we passed the American Rescue Plan, which I call ARPA because that's what policy wonks do. They abbreviate everything. We passed that on March 11th in the US Congress. And I'm going to flag for you a couple issues in that. And then we've got a lot going on in Congress over the summer. We've got a lot of conversation about how do we stimulate an economy that was hurt by COVID. And President Biden has put his ideas on the table, and the debate is now centered around, do we need infrastructure like roads, bridges, and internet, or do we need family supports like help with the cost of childcare, paid and family leave, better and cheaper health care, et cetera. We actually need both, but you'll hear a lot of debate about soft versus hard emphasis. Is that right, Jesse? You can go to the next one. Okay. So that's just a real quick, nice little, my internet connection's unstable, it just told me, by the way, but hopefully I won't lose my signal. As you can see, I'm going to turn off my video. That'll help. That's just a quick overview of what was in the American Rescue Plan Act that has passed Congress. Lots of amazing things to help families, working families, lower income working families. I'm just going to talk about the two lower corner health and fiscal aid items and only talk about them briefly. Next slide, please. I feel like Vanna here with the help here. So let's zoom in on the health provisions. This is stuff that's already passed by Congress. And the biggest thing was that it made it more affordable to buy health insurance at healthcare.gov, which is the Affordable Care Act marketplace. And that the changes in the health premium tax credit makes insurance cheaper, and they'll be in place for 2 years. And just to give you a sense of this, rather than read this slide, I just saw a statistic that showed that in West Virginia, this provision is so important that we saw the the percentage of people who can buy health insurance for less than $50 a month go from 36% to 64%. So what that says is a whole lot more people in West Virginia can have a much cheaper cost, a much lower premium for really quality, decent health insurance. And in fact, that is 3 times more people helped in our state than any other state in the country. So we have a huge stake in these provisions. Next slide, please. If you haven't checked out the healthcare.gov site, the open enrollment period, by the way, was extended until August 15th. So you might want to take a look if you have before and said, I can't afford health insurance here, because it's now cheaper. There were other health provisions in the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. The most important one, Jesse's already mentioned. Our state legislature had the good wisdom to say that women on Medicaid who have babies can stay on it for a year instead of just 2 months. So they can deal with postpartum depression, with diabetes, with other health issues. So they can stay healthy, so they can take care of their baby. And the federal government in ARPA made it easier for our state to do that. So here's a nice example of how the federal and state came together. We took advantage of a new option that the federal government put on the table, and I think we were able to pass it in part because it was made easier to do. You can see there's other things that were done in healthcare. I'd flag one other on this slide. The slides here is a resource for you if you want to get into the details, but we are getting a big chunk of money for home and community-based services that are paid for through the Medicaid program. So think of, grandma in the hospital. She's doing a little better. She has to be discharged from the hospital. Do we want her to go into a nursing home, or do we want her to be able to go home and get the services, healthcare, and other support services that she needs at home? Well, most grandmas are gonna, and I'm one of them, we'd rather go home and not go to a nursing home. And our kids would rather see us get to go home. So this money will help our state make it more feasible, more possible for folks who are discharged from the hospital to not go into an institutional setting, but to get the care they need at home. It also helps a lot of people with disabled children who are at home and they need some support and help for their children to get the care they need at home, not in an institution. Next slide, please. So there's one provision in the American Rescue Plan Act that isn't necessarily a health provision, even though it says that on the slide. I want to flag for all of you. In the same way that I think a lot of you can make a huge difference in what happens in our state legislature, you have an opportunity to make a difference in your counties and cities. The American Rescue Plan Act sent a bunch of money to West Virginia that flows to not only the state government, but actually $677 million that goes to counties and states. Counties and cities, my mistake. And you can see there's some links here. You can see how much money your county and city is getting. Here's the thing, this money is coming in right now, and you have an opportunity to put forward your good ideas about how your community can use this money, on what your community needs this money to be used for. You can contact your county commissioners and city council members and your mayor. And this money can be used for a lot of different things. It can be used to, improve sewers, to improve roads. It also can be used to provide family supports that people need, help with the cost of childcare. It's really the sky's the limit on ideas that you can put on the table. And we're talking a pretty big pile of money for most of your communities. You can see the link here to see how much money your community is getting. I really encourage you, again, your voice can make a big difference. Most people don't even know this money is going to be coming in to their city or county. You can talk to people and help shape how it's used. Next slide. So that's my little action alert for the day. So what happens next in Congress? We pass this amazing American Rescue Plan Act. And by the way, it was passed with a pretty good support, but basically it was a Republican versus Democrat proposition. So going forward in Congress, we're going to have the issue of what can we get bipartisan support for? What will Republicans agree to do? What will Democrats agree to do? And where will the overlap be? So there's going to be a lot of debate about what our economy needs now. Again, this hard versus soft. Do we need roads and bridges and sewers, or do we need supports for families like childcare, like paid and family medical leave, like better, more affordable health insurance? And I'm not going to invest in that debate right here today. But if you think about it, each one of us probably has an opinion about this. I like to think about a West Virginia parent, my neighbors across the street. What does she need to get out the door to work so that she can be productive? Well, she probably does need a bridge between, and a decent road to get her from her home to her work. But she may also need childcare. She may not have that. She may need someone to take care of her mother that lives at home and has some health issues, or maybe dementia, for example. She may need more affordable health care so that she can keep herself and her family healthy enough to allow her to get up and go to work. So it's really shouldn't be a debate about hard versus soft. We should find a way to pay for all those elements going forward. Next slide. So hold that thought about this range of things that people need. Our president has put on the table both hard and soft investments. His first bill, the American Job Plan, had investments in things like roads, sewers, broadband internet access, which we all need better, and I certainly do in West Virginia. The second set of proposals he put on the table was the American Families Plan. And this tends to be more those, what I call soft infrastructure improvements to our nation. And the one that I'm following most closely and that West Virginians for Affordable Healthcare is really excited about is that extra help with the cost of insurance. If you go to healthcare.gov, those premium tax credits in the Affordable Care Act, the improvements that help so many West Virginians are only temporary in the bill that passed. This new plan proposes to make those temporary improvements permanent. And this would mean a lot more West Virginians can actually afford the premiums to buy a quality plan on healthcare.gov. So we really, really want to see that happen. And it's not a given that it will. You can also see there's a lot of other exciting things in this proposal. I'm not going to highlight all those, but what happens now is all this stuff gets thrown into the sausage maker. That is how Congress moves and makes laws. And so the House will think about these things. They'll decide what they want to move forward. They put together a package that could have many different elements in it, and then goes to the Senate. And the Senate then has to agree to that or make their own changes. So it's a process that will be going on all summer and into the fall. But if there are things here on this slide that you think strongly about, that you want to see our families have, you know, maybe it's free community college tuition for 2 years. Call Senator Manchin's office, call Senator Capito's office. You can find their contact information on the internet, you know that, and make a difference by letting them know what you support. You can go ahead and go to that next slide. So the one thing I want to say is all this great stuff that really will support working families and make it easier for them to balance their budget, to get out the door to work, to take care of their families, can only pass in Congress if they're paid for. Just like the state legislature, when you want to do something new, you also have to figure out what you're going to do different to pay for the cost of, for example, free college tuition for 2 years. So what has been put on the table by our president is what he calls his fair share taxes proposal. And I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here. I'm not a tax expert, but there are no tax increases to any family in this country who makes less than $400,000 a year. It will raise taxes on wealthy folks, and most importantly, and here's where the big bucks are, to pay for things like additional help with the cost of childcare or additional help with the cost of health insurance, is that it will raise corporate taxes to 28%. So go to the next slide. You're going to hear over the summer folks saying, oh, you can't raise the corporate tax, we'll lose jobs. Well, let me just point out, and this slide is from my friends at Americans for Tax Fairness, we were at 35% corporate tax rate for years. And then before that, it was even higher. And in 2017, President Trump had a tax cut proposal that dropped the corporate rate to 21%. And this slide I just love, because all we are asking now is to take it back up to 28%. And I have quotes from many corporate executives who say, oh, we can live with 28%. We didn't need 21%. It was a huge cut to corporate American taxes. And we're really just putting on the table to bump it back up halfway. You know, and you may say, well, why not go back up to 35? Well, it's you know, it's a process of compromise between parties and perspectives. Next slide. And I think this is a great little slide. It's one of those things that I put up on Facebook, and you can grab any of these graphics and share them on your Facebook page or through Twitter or whatever, Instagram, whatever different platforms folks are using these days. I sort of stick to Facebook and Twitter. 55 corporations, and there were actually more than that, but there were 55 corporations we can clearly identify who paid zero income taxes in 2020. And that was on $40.5 billion of profits. And you can see some of them, you know, from Ball that makes our lovely mason jars that I buy all the time, to Hewlett Packard, to Nike, to FedEx. They don't pay taxes. And so we have a lot of loopholes we can also close, a lot of offshore tax benefits that we can close. And that money that is really corporate welfare, it is really huge loopholes and tax cuts for corporate America, can be rechanneled into programs that support working families. I'll leave it at that. If you all have more questions, we certainly can get into them in the discussion section. Jesse, go ahead and go to the next slide, and I think I kick it back over to you now.
Apologies, I'm trying to unmute myself and show myself again, running that. Yeah, so a lot of things are going down. Our state legislature has been very prolific with bills this year. Not all of them so great for us. So we still have an opportunity in 2022 to influence that agenda. Immediately, we're talking about these federal things that Kat lined out for you. Before I tell you how you can get involved, I would like to say thank you all. There's so many participants in this session. And I know, you know, I was a social worker for a while. Policy is not always the most fun place to be. It's not always the most interesting. But in my perspective, it's one of the most important places we as social workers or you know, complementary professions need to be involved. So, you know, we're always updating things. We're always ready to give alerts on things that are happening. And then we also are really trying to make space for people to get involved. So, you know, as things come up, and I would say, you know, if you have anything come up in your world, share it with us. It could be a symbiotic relationship, right? If some issues coming up, share. We would love to know about, you know, your perspective on healthcare and what's going good and what's not. But we always have resources on our website, which is wvahc.org. From there, you can sign up for our email alerts, or we've got links in your thing. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. That's where we put out all sorts of new information if something's coming down. So, for example, when they extended the enrollment period for healthcare.gov, we made sure that people knew that through our social media and email. So that's a good way to stay connected about what's happening. Another thing we do is we have learned over the past few years the power of personal stories. So I'm a big data person, you know, I'm all numbers and stuff, but I have seen firsthand the effectiveness of having somebody share their story. I'll give you an example. For the 2020 session of our state legislature, there was a bill proposed that I spoke about earlier to reduce copays for insulin and things like that. We were able to use storytellers talking just about how expensive it was to live with diabetes. And I feel like that moved people. And Kat mentioned on the personal income tax debate, we had a social work student from Marshall, I believe, BSW, you know, testify before our legislature about how that would impact him. So we're always interested in folks who want to share their stories or, you know, give their perspective on that. And then, of course, you know, Kat was talking about all this money that's coming into our state, and she mentioned contacting your county commissioners and council members to say, this is where we would like our money to go. So there's a lot of options about getting involved. So whether it's the state level or the federal level, or even asking us questions about this distribution of money at the local level, we would always be a resource for anybody here, but I would encourage you to check us out and sign up for our email alerts so that you can be up to date on, these sorts of things that are going through our government, because if we don't pay attention to what they're passing, that's detrimental for our clients, for our patients, whatever. We need to know what's happening. And I remember the code of ethics for social workers, and I just feel like this is part of our charge, to get involved and advocate for our clients. So at this point, I know that we have 13 minutes left. Kat, we did awesome, I think. And we can open it up to discussion and questions. It's very quiet. I would like to note that in the chat, Kat put that we were looking for stories from folks who can't afford their prescription drugs, because that's one thing we want to work on. So if anybody's got resources or stories of their own, or of anybody who would be willing to share. Oh, just an FYI, if anybody shares a healthcare story with us and we use it for advocacy, we will absolutely respect everybody's level of comfort and privacy. So if you want to remain anonymous, that's fine. If you don't want to do a video, that's fine. We're very respectful of that, but we have found that story collection is a really powerful advocacy tool. And we like using that. So we would encourage anybody to share that. And just a reminder, because I know a lot of folks hopped on later, our PowerPoint is in the repository. And you can click on any of those links to get you to that information that we've shared. So
I'm gonna challenge folks. I know it's late in the afternoon. It's a gorgeous day outside, and we threw so much information at you.
Yeah.
But if you want to do it out loud, I think you can be unmuted, or you unmute yourself. I'm not sure the procedure here, but there's also the chat. If you could do, help a working family in one way, you guys are in the business of helping folks. If there's one thing you think working families in West Virginia need, what is it? Is it help with childcare? Is it help with taking care of mom and dad who are sick?
Mm-hmm.
Is it paid family and medical leave so you can take a day off work and go to the doctor? Is it cheaper prescription drugs? Cheaper health insurance in general?
I have one, guys.
Maybe it's better broadband. I'm telling you, it's high on my list. What is it? I see childcare popped up.
May I?
Sure, Lisa.
Okay.
Please.
One of the things that would really help the working families that I work with as an adult services person, who is one of my main focuses is working families dealing with elder care for their elders. We have services available that fund in-home housekeeping services so that a person can have someone in the home during the daytime hours. But we have people who want to keep a family member in their home, but there is no one who can be with them full-time during the nighttime hours. And that is when some of these people have issues with falling, wandering, these types of things. If there were some type of funding available where people could simply receive somebody that doesn't have to do much except be an in-home babysitter for elders who would be maybe otherwise in a nursing home, but are otherwise fit to be home, but they just need someone to be there in the nighttime hours to make sure that they don't have an oopsie.
Okay, I'll comment back on that, Lisa, because I think it's an excellent point. That's sort of under that umbrella of home and community-based services. It's a direct care worker. It's not necessarily a home health care aide,
Right.
but it's someone to be providing just very basic support, and company in some ways, and an eye on the situation in people's homes. In West Virginia, we have Medicaid programs that can pay for that, but we have an enormous workforce shortage, which I bet you're very well aware of. So even if you sort of sign up for the right programs and you're low income enough to sign up for them, that's a whole set of issues. We don't have all the workforce that we need because the pay is so lousy. So how much do you pay someone to spend the night with someone who's very, who may be frail? Well, we don't pay much. Sometimes it's as low as minimum wage. So one of the things we're working on, and we hope we can advance, is with the money that the federal government is giving us, that 63 million, and it may be more, a lot more, but we don't know yet. We're working with our commissioner of Medicaid to do, instead of just throwing more money at the providers generally, is to do workforce development. So train people to do this work, and as they go through the training, they'll get paid more each step of the training they complete. And that may help give us more workers who are going to get paid better by the state government and be willing to come in the evening. I'll tell you, Lisa, I actually used to do this work when I first moved up to West Virginia. I did it through a hospice agency. And, to get paid minimum wage to spend the night with someone far from my own family and be responsible for their health and well-being, and to assist them with, the bathroom, to assist them with eating. Some of those things are needed. Sometimes they aren't. It should pay more than minimum wage, and we should make sure people are well trained to do that. It should be a professional career to take care of people at home, not sort of pays less than, not to pick on them, but less than Dollar General. So we're hoping we can start to develop career tracks, training, and higher pay for the folks who might be interested in this as a career, who would like to do this as a job that gives them some hourly flexibility, right? Like you could work at night, be home during the day with your kids. We'll see how far that goes. I will mention at the federal level, there is $400 billion that was put in the mix that I was talking about through the American Jobs Plan, which was Biden's first set of proposals. So he put two proposals on the table. They all go to Congress, and Congress picks and chooses, and that's where the rubber hits the road. But he has made home and community-based services a legacy issue, and he wants to put $400 billion, which is significant in that arena, have Congress approve that to improve how we provide services at home to people who need long-term care. So that's another piece of what will be going through Congress this summer that you should raise your voice. In fact, call Senator Manchin, call Senator Capito. Well, I'm not saying one or the other, call them both, and say, if there's one thing I think we need in our state, it's more money so people can have the services they need to stay at home rather than go to a nursing home or other institution for care. So again, what an opportunity we have right now to address the very problem you've pinpointed. And I did see the message also in the chat that you had about this.
We had another question from the chat. When you asked some ideas of what we need, childcare came up a lot. And so there was a question in the chat about what can we do to advocate for improved childcare benefits for working families. The pandemic really made it clear how much we need childcare. And so what can we as social workers do?
Ooh, childcare is a good one, right, Kat?
Yeah, I mean, I think in many ways I consider childcare a healthcare issue, because you can't even go to the doctor if you don't have childcare to take care of yourself. And we've heard from many Medicaid beneficiaries that I missed my doctor's appointment because I didn't have any place to leave my kids. And we can't all rely on grandparents, which is what too often the system is doing. In the American Families plan set of proposals that President Biden has put on the table is significant, and I'm talking big bucks here, significant funding for a child care tax credit. So if you were to go back to our PowerPoint, you'll see that in the slide. And I could certainly provide more information about that. But the bottom line is right now in Congress, they are talking about putting money into child care. But they have got, I hope that's not my kid in the background.
It's mine, I'm sorry.
you know, they
Speaking of
need to hear.
childcare.
Our senators, and I'm saying senators and not the House. And I don't want to get into why right now, but I'm going to tell you that what is most important right now is for you to make your voice heard to Senator Manchin. He has positioned himself to be pivotal in the Senate to whatever happens. And West Virginia is in the spotlight across the country for people who want to see some of these changes, because Joe Manchin he has what will pass and what won't pass almost in the palm of his hand. And I love the senator. I don't have any political gripes with him, at least that I'm going to tell you about right now. But we need to let him know what we want off this slide. That's not the right slide, but that's okay. It's farther down, Jesse. It's the one that's got like one more. Do another one. One more. One more. Where'd it go? There we go. Look at this one. Up. Go back. Jesse, okay, one more back. Where'd it go, Jesse? It was right there. It was in between. I can't. There. No. Keep it. Yeah. Anyway, there's a bunch of stuff in the American Families Plan. We focused on the health provisions, but on the last slide, right, I think it's after this one, Jesse. One more.
I swear I'm working on it.
I love technology. Just, yeah, I don't see it right now. It had a list of the things that are in the American Families Plan. You can also see those things described in a blog on the West Virginians for Affordable Healthcare.org website. And it includes premium, Mickey's worried about it. It includes a significant increase in the child care tax credit. And maybe I didn't even put the slide in, Jesse. I'm wondering now. I have so many versions of this.
I'm stopping sharing. I'm gonna pull up our website just to show that. But continue, Kat.
Right. And you can, come on, folks, I know not everyone has equal access to the internet. I have lousy connections myself that cost me way too much. But if you Google the American Families Plan or check out our website, you will see a description of what President Biden put on the table for Congress to consider. And it includes the new robust family tax credit, which gives families with children funding money every month to help raise children. It has a child care tax credit in it, and it has significant improvements to health care. Is it everything everybody wants? No, but has it got a lot in it? Yes. And so the opportunity now is, I would say, whatever you think families need, now is never been a better time, a more ripe time to call Senator Manchin and say, here's what I think families need. And chances are there's something in the American Families Plan that will line up. But even if there isn't, this is a wide open process that will go on through September and October. It doesn't happen overnight. And what happens in the House doesn't dictate what happens in the Senate. The critical player in the entire U.S. Congress is our own Senator Joe Manchin. So everything you can tell him about what matters to West Virginians, now is the time to do that. If there's never been another time, it's right now. And I know my family's like, I don't call senators. I'm like, going to get some senator on the phone. Call and leave a message. For chances are you won't get a real person, and it's just a reality of Congress. Leave a message. Say, I am Kat Stoll. I live in Morgan County, West Virginia, and my family needs help with childcare. Can you make that happen in Congress, Joe? And it doesn't have to be, tied to a specific bill or very elaborate. It makes a difference. It makes a difference. And we've never needed those calls more than that.
And Kat's completely correct. Like, if you want to get involved with this, I just wanted to pull up our website here real quick, just to show you, like, if you look at our blog here, this is what our website's new. So we've just got all these new things on it. But here's if you're curious about any of these topics, American Rescue Plan, here you go, postpartum care, there you go. The PIT, we've got blogs. We've got a section on, like, take action on the AR or the ARP there. But here's what I really want to say. If you want to join us in our journey, that's just signing up for our email and stuff like that. One of the things we would like to do as an organization is provide opportunities for healthcare advocates, whether that's social workers or physical therapists or, PCPs or whomever, like, to have their voices heard as well. So when we have Share Your Story, this is one of the things we're so excited about how it's coming along. We talked about that storytelling. You can share yours, you can watch videos, but we want provider stories too. We don't just need patient stories. If anybody's interested in sharing their experience as a provider, that's cool too. Like, we just want it all. We want the more information, the better, because the more information we get, the better we can advocate for people in West Virginia.
Somebody put in the notes, sometimes.
Oh, is there?
I was going to say, you call a member of Congress and you call Senator Manchin or Senator Capito's office, you don't hear back, or maybe you get something that looks like a form letter. I've worked in congressional offices for a number of members back when I was living in DC. I am from West Virginia, but I worked in DC for years. Every day, there was one staff person's job to create a log of how many calls came in from the state the member was from. So Joe Manchin's staff logs every call that comes in from West Virginia. They don't log calls that come in from other states, by the way. Generally, just the home state. And they log what the call was about. So, constituent call wants childcare help. It may be that simple. That log is reported to Senator Manchin every day at the end of the day. I don't know if every single office does it that way, but I know that's what happens in his.
And yeah.
So you think your calls don't count, but if he sees that 30 people called on Tuesday and their message was, I can't afford my prescription drugs, and it does start to change what he's willing to put himself on the line for, what he's willing to talk about, and where he's willing to compromise with Republicans to advance. So again, you might not get that call back from his staffer or him, certainly not. Don't count on that. You may not even feel like you've been heard, but I know phone calls are logged, and they are the most effective way to get your message to the senator. Emails are good too, don't discount them, but a phone call is always viewed as a step higher of engagement. So if you're comfortable picking up the phone, and I almost guarantee you'll get a voicemail, you just have to leave your message, and that gets logged and reported to the senator at the end of the day. It's a tool that I think is totally underutilized by many of us, including myself.
And just to wrap up and add to what Kat said, we realize most of you all are probably like either students or frontline workers, and policy's not right there at the front of your head. I know I've been there. But if it's something that you're passionate about, or something that some of your clients or patients are passionate about, just hook them up with us. Like, we would involve anybody in this effort in, whatever way they could fit in. And I'm not doing a sort of commercial here, because our intention was really just to provide you all with those legislative updates. And I really appreciate everybody's attendance and paying attention to a subject that sometimes, gets pushed to the back burner with everything that's going on in your work lives. Like, I totally get that. But if you have, a smidge of time, if you have a lot of time, excellent. If you have a smidge of time, shoot, we can fit you in somewhere. We can always help you. And then beyond that, we're also a resource on health policy itself. So if you're, you wonder what's happening with this policy issue in our legislature, check out our website. And if it doesn't answer it, shoot us an email or a call. We really would like to be a policy, a repository and source of information, especially for those folks like you all who are doing the hard work on the front lines. So, thank you.
All right, thank you guys so much for presenting. I just want to say you did a great job, great information.
Could you help
Thank
me?
you, Charity.
Oh, Charity. Is the moderator there?
Yes, I'm here. What can I do for you?
Well, I really am looking forward to the opportunity to learn about how to make sure my name is here so I participated.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't do that for the opening session or the A5 session.
Okay, let me copy and paste that for you.
So I've been trying to learn. I'm you don't know how excited I am that I've learned a lot, but there's participants down here. Do I click that?
So I'm gonna just copy and paste something in the chat for you. I think you just put your name in for the most part.
Like, I can see I've made sure to be on the video, and it's W Franke, Francké. But I think it was Amy in the B1, she said I needed to have my Wendy, my first name, along up there.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and put your full name just to verify it. I went ahead and dropped that in the chat again.
Okay. And then is there anything, do you think I will not be able to get credit for the opening session in A5?
I can ask. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Let's see if I can send you.
And I even kind of caught on to it at the end of I think it was B1 about the racism. Was it B1? No, it was B2.
Charity, is it okay if we all hop off and you guys do that?
Yes, feel free to go. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Thank you all. Thanks all attendees. It was great. I appreciate you all. Bye.
Thank you.
You should still be able to get credit. There is an honor system to reporting your hours that you attended, but there's also a backup. And so the NASW is getting copies from Zoom of who was logged in and who wasn't. So the chat, putting your name in the chat, is the easiest way to verify your attendance. But there's some other measures in place that will also help. So you will still get credit if you actually attended.
Okay, because I did attend. Yeah, and I was in the breakout sessions number 3 and breakout number 13, if that helps. So hello?
Yeah, you self-report to this. That's one of the things that Charity just dropped in the box for you.
Okay.
It's a form that you're going to fill out at the end that talks about which sessions you attended.
Okay, and I hope tomorrow I'm more knowledgeable, and I'm so impressed with you all. Thank you very much.
Yes, just chat your name in every time you get in a session tomorrow, and you will be good to go.
Okay, and I'll chat my name in tonight too. I'm going to go.
Yes, if you want to go ahead and practice that, go for it.
So yeah, I'll practice that. Okay, thanks.
Have a great rest of the session. Or
Hey, thank you.
bye. Okay.